Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Little Talks with PopCultX. I'm your host, Daniel. And as you all know, we generally describe the X in PopCultX as our Gen X or Xennial viewpoint. But recently, we've been thinking that it's a little more than that. And like any good mathematician or pop culture enthusiast will tell you, X is a variable that often marks the spot. So X for us is a different viewpoint, a different perspective. And today we're lucky enough to be joined by Jeffrey Mariotte, who is a prolific author who's written well north of 70 novels, including genres, thrillers, Western, mysteries, horror, fantasy, and more. He's run several awards from several organizations, and he's just a really cool dude. And today we are talking about his book that he co-wrote with Peter Murrieta called Blood and Gold, The Legend of Joaquin Murrieta. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Daniel. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really interested. And how did someone who is in an author like you meet up with your co-author, Peter, who's a movie guy or a TV show guy? And how did you guys form this collaboration? That was like the first thing that really got to me. Was like, they're from two different worlds. How did you guys join forces to create this awesome book?
We have a mutual friend.
Okay.
Named Russell Binder, who's with Stryker Entertainment. They're a licensing company primarily.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
But they've also done some producing, and I've known Russell for since the early 90s. I don't know how Peter and Russell came together. But, they're both involved in the LA showbiz thing.
That's cool.
So Russell came to me and said that he wanted me to write a book about Joaquin Murrieta.
Okay.
Actually, he didn't phrase it that way. He said, there's this great character from California history who was kind of known as the Robin Hood of the gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is, and we both said Joaquin Murrieta at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Because I had read a bunch of stuff about Joaquin.
Uh-huh.
He had read a bunch of stuff about Joaquin. We were both fascinated by this guy, and that had never come up in any of our previous conversations. But all of a sudden we start talking about Joaquin and how amazing his story is.
Oh, yeah.
And how it should be retold from a more contemporary point of view, I guess, because the early tellings of it tend to be pretty one-sided and not always that historically accurate, let's say.
Okay.
And he said, and I just happen to know this guy, Peter Murrieta, who's a fifth generation descendant of Joaquin's.
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
So then I wrote the first draft and ran it by Russell and Peter. And then Peter brought a whole ton of notes and a bunch of family stories that had been passed down through the generations that had never been printed anywhere.
Wow, that's cool.
And so then we reworked it, and I forget how many times we went back and forth, maybe 4 or 5 times before we came up with what we thought was the real deal.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it's the first time that these stories have been reproduced, or put out to the public. And it's as historically accurate as we can conceivably make it.
Right.
While also being, we think, true to the character of Joaquin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially because it is, I guess it's hard when you're working with a character or a historical figure. So there's also this, this air of legend about him, right? So he has this mystique about him. And so you want to be able to capture that. And I think you guys did in this book that, he's larger than life, but he's also a real person.
Yeah. And that's the real person aspect was never really captured in the earlier stuff that we read about him. And honestly, I felt like the earlier books were, I don't know, kind of grandstanding, kind of almost more about how awful he was. So
right.
But it's a good thing that these guys were able to bring him in. And
right. I gotcha. I guess
we saw it from his point of view.
I guess that leads into my next question: is how much prior to writing your first draft, and when you went back and forth, how much research did you have to do for this book? How much before you even started your world building? How much research did you do? Get into that.
Tons. I actually built a book stack once of all the stuff that I read, except the ones that I checked out of the library that I had to give back, the stuff from my personal collection. And it was about, I don't know, almost 2 feet high.
Wow.
And I bought some stuff that I didn't have, but I have a pretty big library of Western history, Western Americana stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I read everything I could get my hands on about the Gold Rush era and about the Mexican War, the Mexican-American War, because that's where everything kind of gets started, and about Joaquin specifically and his family. So yeah, I did a ton of research before I got started.
That's cool. Yeah. Especially when you're trying to be historically accurate, I guess it pays to do the research.
Yeah. And I kept telling Russell, this is going to be longer than we thought.
Well, it does read fast, even though it is over 600 pages, I think, but it does read fast. So that's really good. Because you guys keep it exciting throughout. I don't think there was ever a moment in the book that was kind of a lull. It was just always go. And he went from one escapade to the next. So I thought that was really cool.
Thank you. We wanted it to be epic because his life was epic, as much as we know about it historically.
Right.
And the impact that he's had on the generations that followed is greater than his life was at the time.
Right.
A lot of people would just dismiss him as, he was a bandit, he was a thief. And that's all there is to it. But the impact that he had in the state of California and in Mexico and then beyond, has been huge. Yeah,
I agree. One thing that really got me in the state of California, that really, I don't want to say surprised me, but it didn't really resonate within me until reading it, is that a lot of their adventures, I guess I'll call, took place in the northern half of California, like San Jose, San Francisco, in that area up there. So I thought that was really interesting, because when I picture bandits in California, I always picture more the southern side, Los Angeles and south. So the fact that a lot of it took place, especially like in the second half of the book, in that northern area was quite interesting. Was that, how historically accurate was that?
That's where the gold was. So
that makes sense. That's true.
In Southern California, he was known as a horse thief.
Okay.
Because there were the big ranchos down there that were from the Spanish land grants. But the real money flowing into the state was from the gold rush in Northern California, and then all the people who were coming to that gold rush. That's all the ship traffic and road traffic across the trails from eastern states.
Right. All led over there. Yeah, it's true.
So the businesses that sprang up to cater to all those people. So the real money in the state was in the northern part.
Right.
The capital was in San Jose at the time.
See, I didn't know that. See, I learned stuff. So you're teaching me through this book of legend. So that's really cool.
I went to San Jose State University, and that's where I first heard about Joaquin.
Oh, okay.
And that's not too far from the Gold Rush area.
Right.
So I used to go up to the Gold Country all the time on just camping trips and vacations.
Oh, fun.
Hiking up there. So I had a kind of a geographical understanding of the area. And my daughter lives up there. She lives in Volcano, which is one of the towns that's mentioned in the book. And
Cool.
the one that Joaquin probably visited.
That's really cool. You have a deeper connection with him. That's really cool. Going beyond Blood and Gold, what really inspired you, Jeffrey, to start writing just in your life? What really drew you to writing?
I can't ever remember a time when I didn't want to write.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, I read a lot of like Hardy Boys mysteries.
Okay.
Then I wrote these horrible, very derivative little stories about teenage detectives. They weren't Frank and Joe. They would have been like Bob and Sam or something. But they were brothers, and they had. So basically, just doing my own copycat stories based on Hardy Boys type stuff. So fanfic.
Yeah.
At the age of like 9.
Oh wow. Okay. So
and then it's just something that I've done ever since. And I wrote through high school. I wrote through college. I won 3rd place in a short story award, Bay Area specific award called the Phelan Short Story Award in college.
Okay.
Some journalism published in college. But then it was years before I made my first professional sale. I was working for a bookstore chain,
right,
California, and getting to know a lot of writers and editors and publishers, people in the business, and sold a short story to a science fiction anthology called Full Spectrum that Bantam Books put out.
Very cool.
And that was the first step into professionalism.
Hey, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I wish I could do something like that. I mean, yeah. Do I wish I could do? Yeah, I do wish I could write something like that could get published. I mean, one day maybe, who knows?
Yeah. Keep trying. I mean, I was well into my 30s by then. I didn't have my first novel published till I was over 40.
Okay. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
The woman who wrote Where the Crawdads Sing, which is the big movie now, she's 70.
Oh wow! Okay.
That was her first novel, and she was around 70 or nearly 70 when she wrote it.
I think I just saw a news blurb that they're questioning her about the murder in that book that she wrote about now, or something.
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
some murder in Africa when she lived there. I think they were in Tasmania, and apparently her husband and her stepson were potentially involved in the murder of.
Oh man!
And so they can't go back to Tasmania,
right?
Ever. Because there's no statute of limitations there either on murder. So
goodness.
The guy was a poacher. And so a lot of people are not too sorry that he got, what was coming to him maybe, but
I gotcha.
But then people are saying, well, the situation is kind of like in the book, because in the book it's a murder, but it may be justified.
That's well, hey.
Weird story there.
So what, in your opinion, do you think are the most important elements of good writing? I know it's a kind of broad question, but like when you sit down to write, what do you think goes or makes up your best work, or when you're doing your best storytelling?
I'm a plot guy, so I'm a storyteller.
Yeah,
I don't have a super flashy style. I don't have the command of beautiful prose that some people have, like my wife has. Sometimes I get in a sentence that I think is pretty cool. For the most part, I'm trying to tell a story. I come up with plots, and I'm pretty good at working out the twists and turns, and I try to keep the the reader flipping pages and wanting to know what happens next.
Right.
So
and you did that. Yeah, I think you're a little modest. I think you do that really well. So I guess modesty is a good quality to have. My only regret with Blood and Gold is that I didn't make time to finish it sooner. So I got through the first, what I'll call like the first act. So Joaquin's first act of revenge. And then I had to put it down. But then I finally got back to it and I just couldn't put it down after that. So I just flew through it. And it was just, your telling of the plot was really well done. And I really enjoyed all the stories that came through it. So we are a pop culture podcast YouTube show. So I want to ask you just a few of your favorite items. And these just can be off the top of your head. Don't give it too much thought. So like, what is your favorite movie?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Very cool. Favorite TV show?
The Wire.
Wire. Favorite book? That's probably a hard one.
That's a hard one. I can't name a favorite.
I hear you.
I have favorite authors. I have people who's when a new book shows up, I put everything else aside and pick up.
Okay, who's a favorite author then of yours?
James Lee Burke, Stephen King, Greg Iles. Changes too because I go.
I hear you.
and I know a lot of authors, so I don't want to dismiss any who are friends.
Yeah, I understand.
John Connolly is a friend, and I really like his stuff. Michael Connolly also is a friend, and I really like his stuff. The late Robert B. Parker was a friend, and I zoomed through all the Spencer novels and even the Westerns that he wrote.
I guess I should have asked, what's your favorite genre of book?
Yeah, even that. Even that is hard because I read in a ton of genres, and I always like to write in the genres that I read.
Oh, okay.
Which has been really bad for my career, but it's just the way I'm wired. So I like thrillers, I like mysteries, I like horror, I like Westerns, and I've written in all those. But the career issue comes in that someone who reads my thriller may not be interested in my Western. My Western may not be interested in my horror.
I gotcha.
So instead of like having a series that people want to read the next one and the next one and the next one, I'm kind of all over the place. And so I have this little audience here and this little audience here, but I don't have the big broad audience that you can build with a series that's the same genre and the same characters time and time again.
Gotcha. So we need to create like a multiverse of Jeffrey Mariotte books and like create like something that unites them all. So all the different fandoms that you have out there, bring them all together. Do you have a favorite music album?
Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys.
Oh, that's such a beautiful album. Yeah, it really is. Favorite comic?
All in the other room.
I
have a shadow box, and in the shadow box is a tambourine that was used in the Pet Sounds sessions.
Oh, wow.
That Brian Wilson autographed and authenticated.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah. I just listened to that album for the first time in its entirety about a month ago. Oh. So it's on like the Apple Music with like the new Dolby Atmos sound. So you can feel like you're right in there in the recording session. And I just put it on and I just lost myself in the album. It is that fantastic. Yeah, it really is. Do you have a favorite comic book?
Again, hard one. I worked in comics publishing for years and years.
That's true. You did. Yes.
I was vice president of marketing for Wildstorm Productions when it was part of Image Comics. Then I became a senior editor at DC Comics. Then I left there to be the first editor-in-chief at IDW Publishing. And our son David is now an editor at IDW, where I used to
cool.
be the EAC. So favorite comic book character, I would say Batman.
Okay.
Love Daredevil, love Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But I can't name a favorite comic book because, again, that.
No, I got you. Yeah, the character's fine.
I just read Torsos by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Andreyko. It's a graphic novel about the Cleveland torso murders.
Wow.
Fascinating book.
Yeah, Brian Michael Bendis, I like his work. Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, Daredevil and Batman are two of my favorite characters. So there's so many iterations of Batman, though. It's hard to like focus on one, so I go off of like writers that I enjoy, whose storytelling I enjoy, and I go off find those versions of the characters I like.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned, or I saw, I think on your Twitter feed, that you just finished a Tarzan book.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I went to this, it's called a Dum Dum. It's an annual gathering of Edgar Rice Burroughs fans.
Okay.
Dum Dum, because that was when the apes and Tarzan got together. They had a big kind of party and they killed something and ate it. And that was a Dum Dum. So the Burroughs gatherings are Dum Dums. So I went to one a couple of years ago here in Arizona, and I met the folks from Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, which is the company that Burroughs set up to publish his own work because he thought he could publish it better than the New York publishers could. And we got to talking, and I've done a lot of tie-in writing, different characters. I've written Conan, I've written Spider-Man, Superman, properties like Buffy and Angel and CSI and Narcos and et cetera. So I'm used to licensed writing, and I kind of understand the rules of when you get to play with a cool character, what you can and can't do with it. Mm-hmm. So eventually they asked me to write a Tarzan novella.
Oh, nice.
And that was, in the words of The Godfather, that was an offer I couldn't refuse. Because it's Tarzan.
Right. Classic character, yeah.
So
right.
One of the most popular pop culture characters in the history of the world.
Yeah, very true.
Right up there with Mickey Mouse. So I did it and I had a blast. It was just so fun to write.
Yeah.
And the response, it just came out last month, and the response has been great. People have really been digging it. And
very cool.
What's particularly meaningful to me is the hardcore Tarzan fans who know all the ins and outs of the character and of Burroughs' life and his career and all of his different worlds that he created. Nearly every review says that Tarzan in my book is the Tarzan in those books.
Oh, that's cool.
Same guy. You can't tell the difference. And that's just huge for me.
That's really cool. Well, see, you have something in common with Burroughs. And he created Tarzan and Conan. So he has all these different worlds, right? It's just like you. So now you just got to bring them together.
Yeah. And he did that sometimes. He sent Tarzan to the Earth's core, for instance. So the Pellucidar books and the Tarzan books merged together.
So is there anything that you're working on at the present that you'd like to share with our audience about?
I am working on a police procedural series set here in the Phoenix, Arizona area.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
not right in Phoenix. I'm outside the city, but these are set in Phoenix with the Phoenix PD. And I was able to meet a retired detective from the Phoenix Police Department who gave me a tour of the police headquarters and has been answering all kinds of questions. His name's Tim Moore. He's a great guy. And he's also a writer, so he understands what I need to know.
Right. That helps, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's answering all my questions, and he's doing everything he can to make it as authentic as I can make it. I am the deadline for the third book of the 3 that are contracted is August 1st.
Oh, wow.
It is July 16th. So I should be at the keyboard typing, but
well,
it's cool to talk to you.
We appreciate you spending some of your crunch time here with us. My goodness.
It's getting tight. I will say. It'll be published by Wolfpack Publishing, who also published my Cody Kavanaugh Western series recently.
Very cool.
And it's going to be it'll come out in September, October, and November for the 3 books. Very
cool. Very cool. Well, getting back to Blood and Gold real quick, because that's why we're here. Well, let me give you a little, what first got my attention was the cover work by Jorge Gutierrez. And that really just blew me away because I'm a huge fan of his artwork and his storytelling style. And when I saw that, I was like, cool. Then I read what it was about, the book itself, and it got my eye even more. Then I heard that it was going to be made into possibly a series or a film. Is that still something that's happening? Do you know? Are you allowed to talk about that?
There are no deals on the table yet. Okay. There have been meetings. There's been discussion. We're still hoping that it will happen. Mm-hmm. There's also an audio version in the works that I'm not allowed to talk about much, but it's not like someone sitting and reading the book. It's a
like whole production. Yeah. An
actor taking the role of Joaquin and telling the story in the first person. Like I did this, and
that's cool.
So it's like super produced, and that's going to be very cool.
Because I know a lot of books now, especially with, I think Neil Gaiman is doing this a lot with like Sandman and stuff, where they're making that whole big production of it. And it reminds me of like, before TV, the whole radio productions and stories that came out. And being a Gen X guy, I missed out on that. I was born after that, so I didn't really get to capture that. But now that that's coming back into style with like on the streaming platforms, it's something that I look forward to. And if you're going to be doing that with Blood and Gold, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I've heard a little bit of it, just a tiny bit so far, but
that's really cool.
It's going to be great. It's kind of like merging the podcast idea with the radio drama idea and put them together, and you got this whole new thing.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
All right.
So let's fan cast for just a moment. If it were to get made into a series or a film, who would, in your mind, just off the top of your head, don't even think about it too much, would you like to see play Joaquin Murrieta? Is there a current actor out there?
That would be tough because he ages so much through the story.
That's true.
He starts as a 16-year-old kid. And then if he were a little younger, Danny Trejo would be like amazing.
Yeah. I pictured Danny Trejo as like his cousin though, like Tres Dedos. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I always love fan casting books. Whenever I'm reading it, I'm picturing an actor in my mind because, we create these worlds in our head that you've given us. So, yeah, I think that's fun. For me, I don't even know. I haven't thought about it too much. Who I'd like to see play with Joaquin, but if it ever does get done, I'm sure it will be great. And it's a series that I would love to watch. And even if it was made into like a video game, I would love to play that game. There's like the whole Red Dead Redemption Western series, right? Make this a downloadable content. Make him a character in there. I think that'd be really fun to play as Joaquin, and go on the missions as him, as a bandit, because he's not just a bandit. He's a 3-dimensional guy. So he's doing it. He has his reasons and his causes. And I think being able to tell that story in the game would be quite fun.
That would be awesome. Peter and I are also kind of fiddling with the idea of doing a graphic novel.
Oh, that would be cool.
Either a comic book series or a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Kind of adapting it, but also adding some of the stories that couldn't make it into the book because then it would have been 1,000 pages.
That would be really cool. Yeah. Because you could have different volumes and different like you said, the other stories that didn't make it in there. So it's not just a pure adaptation of the book. It's expands upon that.
It's different. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
One story that didn't get in there was that on at least one occasion, maybe more than one, Joaquin could pass as white if he needed to. Mm-hmm. So there were some occasions when he would join like search parties or posses looking for himself.
Wow, that's awesome. That is quite cool.
You couldn't squeeze it into the book, but that definitely is kind of part of the graphic novel. That's
really cool. I'm glad you shared that with us. A little tidbit that's not in the book that you can only hear right here on PopCultX. Right. So if any of our audience or your readers want to interact with you more, I know you're on social media, and I'll put your Twitter link in our bio. Is there any other places where they can interact with you?
JeffMariotte.com.
Okay.
And on the contact page there is my, I think my link tree.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Goodreads. I don't even know what else.
You're just out there somewhere.
And my email's on there too, so people can email me.
Oh, that's really cool. Very accessible to your fans and
absolutely
and your readers. Well, we appreciate you taking some time today, Jeff. I know you're on your crunch deadline, so we'll let you get back to your keyboard. And do you type on a computer, or are you old school and use a typewriter?
No, I'm on a Mac laptop.
Okay, so you're cool like us. It's cool. You're cool with it. I know some people, or I've seen some people who like just on a typewriter and they have to do it that way. Or maybe that's just in movies. I don't know.
Some people still do it by hand.
Oh, wow. Really?
Clive Barker writes everything out by hand first.
There you go.
I don't know if he then types it in or if he has someone type it in, but you know, I would be so slow if I did that.
Yeah, that must be a little.
I wouldn't be able to read half of it. So then I'd be going to Martin. Hey, what did I write here?
Well, thank you again, Jeffrey. We really appreciate you taking your time to talk with us today.
Well, it's good to see you again, man.